Hi, everyone. Welcome to weekly Dharma Gathering. My name is Sheena. Tonight's session, Truth, Beauty, Power, Finding Refuge in the Shitstorm, will be led by Kate Johnson. Kate will lead us through a guided meditation, a Dharma talk, and then at the end, we'll close with a Q&A session. Tonight's session will be recorded, so if you prefer not to be seen, you can turn off your camera. And just please note that you will be recorded when you ask a question tonight, if you ask a question. If you have any questions during the guided instruction or during the talk, please feel free to use the chat function, and we'll be able to address any questions you have during the discussion period. The recording of tonight's gathering can be accessed within 48 hours via your purchase products on your Vimeo Weekly Dharma Gathering account. You will receive an email notification once it's posted. Kate Johnson loves integrating perspectives on Buddhism, social justice, somatics, and creativity in her teaching. She is a queer Afro-Latina, a dancer, and a parent, and has trained as a teacher in the Insight meditation lineage for over 10 years. Kate is a recent graduate of Spirit Rock's 4-year teacher training program. Her first book, Radical Friendship, will be published in August 2021. And so, Kate, please teach us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, thanks everybody for showing up. And in the last retreat I taught, we got in the habit in our team of just saying a little bit about who we are at the beginning of the talk, so that you could get to know us a little better, and just to acknowledge we're people with whole history and a point of view that absolutely shapes our understanding and expression of the Dharma. So in that spirit, I'm my name's Kate Johnson. I was born in Chicago, 1981, which may or may not be a millennial, depending on who you talk to. My mom is white. She's from Missouri, and we always thought she was descended from French Catholics, but more recently it seems it was probably German Ashkenazi Jews, which is a whole other story. My dad is Black. He's from an island off the coast of Honduras, and his mother moved to the U.S. when he was 6, and he followed when he was 14. So I'm a mixed race. And I'm able-bodied, I'm cisgendered. I like to say I'm much more queer than I look. I am either an extroverted empath or an introvert who loves people. And I'm a parent. I have a 11-year-old bonus child named Purple, who is a real tween all day, every day. And I have a now, I guess, a little over 8-month-old fetus that we have affectionately called Cletus the fetus for the last several months, although don't tell my partner because he's not really into it. But this baby will be born in a little less than a month. And I've talked to them about how 2020 is trash and they should sleep through it and just show up in 2021. I don't mean that entirely. I know there's been a lot of gifts and a lot of lessons in 2020, and I think that's part of what I hope we can share tonight. And the title of this talk, Truth, Beauty, and Power, Finding Refuge in the Shitstorm. I forgot that I subtitled it that we actually thought about doing this talk a few months ago, right after the day after the election, actually. So a little over a month ago. And it was such a shitstorm that we couldn't even get it together to get this on daily Dharma gathering, weekly Dharma gathering. It seemed like it was still an appropriate topic for now. and maybe it will be appropriate topic for always. I think that there are some times where um, I certainly think, oh, we'll just get over this little piece and then things will be calm again. I think about it in my work life. Oh, once I get this report in, everything will be smooth. Or I think about it politically. Oh, if we just win this election, then everything will be, you know, settled, at least for a little while. And it doesn't really seem to be that way. So it's a hard truth, but good to know. um, Certainly, much of my experience this last year has been one of uncertainty and of groundlessness, of um, yeah, just the feeling that I don't know what's going to happen next, and a real awareness of um, how unsettling that can feel inside the body. That it's one thing intellectually to know that things are always changing and life is kind of sifting through our fingers, and it's another thing to actually to feel it. Um, and I think that there's a way to feel the groundlessness and uncertainty, and the feeling of being caught in a storm that feels truly unmanageable and almost unbearable, you know, where it's like, can't get a grip. Um, Everything's swirling, nothing makes sense. And I think that there's also a way I've experienced to be with a state of groundlessness and uncertainty and being in the storm that feels, you know, at the very least, kind of okay, and even sometimes exhilarating and um, wondrous and exciting. And the difference seems to be the amount of support um, that I have in those moments of feeling uncertainty. Um, and so, what I hope we can do today is practice a little and then talk a little about what kinds of support the Buddha offers us in a teaching called the three gems or the three refuges. Um, Such that we can have enough inner resource to be with whatever storms might come, and to be with them in a way that is sustainable for us. We don't feel so capsized. Um, I have there's a teacher that I love that I sometimes sit with. His name is Bhante Buddharakita. Some of you might know him. He's a Ugandan monk, and the only Ugandan monk I know, and he's hilarious. Many times in his talks, but one thing that he said once that he was absolutely not joking about. He kind of went dead serious when he started talking about the refuges, and he said how important it is for us to have a relationship with them. That it's not just a Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha that we hang up on the wall and then never revisit again. He said, if you want the refuges to protect you, you have to protect them. That it's a mutual relationship in this way. And we protect them by staying in touch and maintaining intimacy with them. And then he also said, if you want them to be accessible, meaning if, in a moment where it feels like crisis or panic or real need, in those moments where you just cry out, oh my gosh, I need help. If we want the refuges to be accessible to us in those times, we have to actually keep them close. And so that's part of what I hope this practice and this discussion will do for us tonight, a way to remind ourselves of them so that we can protect them, so that we can keep them accessible, and so they'll be there for us when we need them. So I think we'll go ahead and sit for a bit before I keep talking about them, so you can have a little bit of your own experience. Yeah. So if you like, Find your seat that feels comfortable and sustainable for the next 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. You might take a few deeper breaths just to signal to your system that we're shifting modes a little bit. And you can even, sometimes I like to do this, just look around the room before you begin. So you can actually turn your head and look behind you, trace your eyes kind of above and below. What I've been learning about the nervous system is that, yeah, it's one thing for us to like tell ourselves we're in a safe space, and it's another to actually let the eyeballs move so that your system can see, this is, yeah, there's no immediate threat here or danger, hopefully, where you are. And if that's true, and you can see that before practicing, that sometimes there's a little bit more settling that can happen. You can do that, of course, anytime. And then when that feels complete, go ahead and find a place to rest your eyes or close them. As trained in the insight meditation tradition, we often close the eyes, but you're welcome to do whatever feels right for you in your practice. Keeping them open and soft is good too. And I'll offer a bit of guidance early on in the practice. Um, and if it's helpful, feel free to listen, integrate, you know, these cues. If it's not, feel free to let them kind of float in the background. As we go on with the practice, I'll talk less and less so you can have a little bit more of your own space. And we'll start by bringing our awareness to how we're inhabiting our bodies at this moment. Feel free to adjust if there's a way that body might feel more comfortable. And feeling that the body is resting on the earth, allowing our awareness to settle down into the feet and the seat and whatever else is touching the floor or chair or bed that's supporting you. Letting the weight of the body fall and feeling the way that the earth can catch it. And perhaps here feeling into some appreciation for, gratitude for the earth. For the support, for the way that connects all of life. Bring your awareness now into the back of your body. It's feeling from the back of the head and back of the neck, back of the shoulders and back ribs, tracing your way down with your awareness, the entire back body. As if it could be illuminated by your awareness. And to extend your awareness out through the back of your body into the space behind you, including perhaps an awareness of those beings who've had your back in this life, your advocates, teachers, benefactors, heroes, ancestors, perhaps. Feeling the steadiness of their presence. Their love. Extending your awareness now too into the sides of your body, feeling the right side from the side of the head and face and neck, shoulder, arm, armpit, down the torso, all the way down to the right side, and then also the left side of the body, left side of face, shoulder, neck, arm, hand, torso from the armpit to the hip, moving all the way down. And see if you can feel the sides of your body expand side to side so the body takes on more width, more space. And as you extend your awareness out to the sides, bring to mind those beings who you move side by side with in this life, shoulder to shoulder, colleagues, friends, neighbors. Letting yourself feel the support of this horizontal connection. And then bring your awareness to down the front of your body, expanding it, wrapping it around so that you really light up the face and the neck, collarbones and chest, belly, all the way down the front of your body, and extend your awareness out in front of you. And as you sense into that space in front, if you like, bring to mind our collective descendants, the beings that will inherit this earth from us, who will look to us one day as ancestors, who are counting on us to make the road that they will eventually walk. And if you're able, sensing into that presence and noting what that's like for you. And continuing to expand the awareness now so that it wraps overhead to the top of the head and extends outward infinitely into the sky, into outer space. This awareness of the vastness of the cosmos, so much space. Great, great mystery. Feeling what it's like to open the top of the head to all of that space. And in the middle of this great mandala, the earth below, heroes and advocates and teachers at your back, friends and colleagues and neighbors at your sides, descendants lighting the way in front of you, and the vast universe overhead. Locating the phenomena of your breath. Seeing if awareness can stay very wide and mindfulness can pick up on this tiny coming and going in the middle of it all. And to stay with that sensation of breathing as it changes, as a way to gather and collect the experience, steady the mind. And of course, from time to time, you may notice the mind clamping down or becoming dispersed, and it's not exactly a problem. It's just the mind will do that from time to time. But when you notice, see if it's possible to expand the awareness wide and find the fulcrum of the breath. And to let your attention become magnetized by the sensations of the breath coming and going within the great magnitude of your experience. So before I offer, more of my own thoughts about these refuges, I thought I'd share with you a chant that I've been um, taking great comfort in recently. I put it in the chat box, so you might be able to access it if you want to follow along. But it's called the Recollection of the Triple Jewel, and it's a chant that I learned that is often chanted in the monasteries, or in the morning in my tradition, sometimes in the evening as well, just to remind us of what we have access to. Um, and that's been very helpful for me. So I thought I would chant it for you. I think with time, I'll chant it once, and then we may have time if you'd like to do it a little more call and response towards the end of our time together. Um, okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Iti piso bhagava araham sama sambuddho vija charana sampano sugato lokavidu anutaro purisa dhamma saharati sat dewa manusanam buddho bhagava tiswahakato bhagavata dhammo sanditiko akaliko ehipasiko o panahiko pachatam veditahabo vinuhi tisupatipano bhagavato sawakasango ujupatipano bhagavato sawakasango samichipatipano bhagavato sawakasango nyaya patipano bhagavato sawakasango yadidam chatari purisa yuga Niyata purisa pugala esa bhagavato sawa kasango ahunayo pahunayo dahinayo anjali karaniyo anutaram punya ketam lokasati. So I'll just talk a little bit about each of these principles, and we'll offer some new questions for your reflection. The first of the triple gems is Buddha, and you can see in this chant there's many attributes of the Buddha. I love this last simple line that just says "awake and holy," and that's when I what I learned from my first teacher what Buddha means, awake and holy. And so it's of course, the historical Buddha, the enlightened ones, all the saints and sages who shared their wisdom with us. And it's also our own inherent capacity to know what's true. And this is why I put the word truth in the title of this talk. It seems so basic, and yet, in an era where we have not just the glaring examples of like fake news, right? Which is hard. That just relishing the capacity to know what's true and to be able to see clearly, at least some of the time. But then even I don't know what's offered sometimes as like I want to say fake happiness, or not the kind of happiness that isn't substantive or doesn't feel satisfying in some way. Like I remember, early on in my Dharma practice, I was still, I lived in New York. I was kind of a club kid, and I remember going out one night dancing, and looking around and just thinking, is this fun? Like, are we happy here? What's going on here? It was like we had made collectively this agreement that this thing that we were going to do together, like get really drunk and like slam our bodies into each other was going to be fun and make us happy, um, and suddenly, not buying it anymore. Um, so yeah, how precious this capacity to actually be able to know the truth and to feel it when we know it, and to have confidence that human beings can do that, that we might be confused, but not for long, and that eventually that faculty comes online for us individually and collectively. And so the Buddha is offering this as one of the places we can rely on, one of the things that we can rely on, one of the places we can take refuge in uh, when things seem stormy and shitty. And and when things are stormy and shitty, my what I notice in my own mind is that confidence in this capacity to awaken and this capacity to know the truth is often eclipsed by this feeling of doubt. Like, oh, I don't know, I can't see, it's not clear. Um, I was rereading and recently the little bit about the story of the Buddha's awakening, because I wanted to remember more about this earth touching gesture that we sometimes see in the um, visual depictions of the Buddha. Or it's actually, I guess, right before the Buddha became the Buddha, when he was um, a prince who had left this beautiful life of all these material pleasures. He went to the club every night. And then, kind of turned away from that and away from, into extreme renunciation for a period of time. And then got discouraged that kind of wasn't working either. He almost died, trying to um, deprive himself, into enlightenment. And the story goes, was offered some rice milk by this um, young woman representing the feminine principle. His friends, they made fun of him. They called him like a rice eater. They just like kind of shunned him. And but in taking on that nourishment, he remembered this moment of being a kid and sitting down, and his parents were kind of close by, but not hovering, and he was by himself, and he kind of fell into um, a a joyful meditative state. And that memory came kind of spontaneously. And he thought, oh, maybe that's something. There's something there. So he went to sit down at the root of a tree, and he'd been doing all these practices, which of course were accumulating. It was not for nothing. All the things that he did those 7 years, much meditation, much practice, much renunciation, and then um, the story goes that as he was approaching this liberating insight into the truth of who he is and who we all are and how the world is, that Mara, who's a god, but the god of kind of the material realm, kind of came to visit. Um, and the first thing that Mara said was, oh, you've been meditating so long. Like, why don't you take a rest? Kind of like almost like fake compassion, like, you've been working so hard. It's time for a nap. You deserve it. And the Buddha had been doing this kind of like, he was a renunciate. So he just kind of sat there and didn't really face him at all. And then the next thing Mara tried, I guess, was arrows to kind of scare him. So he sent all of his armies to throw arrows at the Buddha, and then the arrows turned into flowers and just fell around at his feet. So much love he was emanating in that moment. And so then Mara thought, I know, I'm going to get you. And he sent in these dancing ladies to kind of like tempt him with their beautiful, selves and smells, and and the Buddha, again, hardcore renunciate, doesn't phase me. I've renounced lust a long time ago. I can go on one grain of rice a day. Like, what's this? And he just keeps sitting. And then the last thing that Mara tries is to rally this force of doubt. And he says to the Buddha, who are you actually to do this anyway? I'm a god, you should switch places with me. Like, I should be sitting there. Um, and that "who are you" question started to actually disturb the Buddha, right? Like, it was this moment of, you know, doubt, I think, is the stickiest for me, for sure. And so with the urge, so that the story is that he reached out and touched the earth. And in my tradition, they say that the earth shook to kind of reassure him and testify to his capacity to awaken. In some traditions, I know they say that the earth actually manifests as a feminine figure who kind of shakes her hair and causes this great rain to rain down and wash away the armies of Mara. Um, so in any case, we sometimes think about the Buddha as this solitary figure, but we know from this story that the Buddha didn't do it alone, right? There was this element of partnership that came in, and a connection with the earth that restored his confidence in the truth of who he was. And so, connecting with this principle of of Buddha, of awakeness, of holiness, that "who are you" question gets at me too. I don't know about you all, but it happens even, it happens a lot actually when I'm about to teach. And I think, you know, I don't have it all together, you know. Um, so in those moments, the earth that I touch, sometimes it has to do with um, just remembering the basics of who I am. Like, I'm a human being. I'm Anne's daughter, Don's daughter. Um, this is where I come from. Sometimes it's reminding myself of, just the facts of my education. Like, oh, I've actually sat the retreats and I've actually done the trainings, and um, I still don't have it figured out, but I've done the work, and that's can have kind of confidence in my education. Um, and sometimes I think it's just the real basics of connecting with the senses. They say that doubt, you can't argue with doubt because it just swirls in the mind. It just changes shape. And so there's this way in which connecting to the physicality of the body, connecting with the body in space, and knowing what's true in terms of um, this moment to moment sensation that's evolving can steady us enough to be able to remember the other truths that we also know. So I won't ask you to comment on this now. I know we're a small, intimate group, but I'd love for you to consider at some point, what is your earth? And what is it that you touch to remind you of the truth of who you are in moments where you feel shaky? And it's good to have a list like this and just put it somewhere so that when you do feel shaky, I often don't remember, then you can just reference it. Um, this second piece, the Dharma. I love some of the phrases that are used here in the chant, that the Dharma is always here and now, ever present, timeless, inviting investigation, leading to the source, to be experienced individually by the wise. Oh, great. Thank you, Ruth. I'm just looking at Ruth's comment. Being pregnant with my son was a great teacher of Earth. What is being pregnant teaching me about Earth? Every presence inviting investigation. I wasn't going to talk about this. I don't know. Being pregnant. One thing that I've become aware of is that I'm not sure if I'm going to answer your question, but I'll try. One thing that I've become aware of is that being pregnant, like my body means something to people now that it didn't mean before. And sometimes it means something to them about, their own experience of pregnancy, or the one that they wish they had but didn't, or the one that they did have and wish they didn't. Sometimes it's reminds them of their own mother, you know, and or just this longing to be mothered. So it's interesting to feel like I'm inhabiting a body that's also an archetype, in the way that or the earth is an archetype, and sometimes it feels a little overwhelming. But it's a super sensory experience in the way that I think touching the earth is, and so sitting, when I'm aware of my bones dropping, I'm also aware of the baby bones dropping, these little baby bones. Um, and I'm also aware of how tempting it is to mentally jump forward into the next part of this experience, which is when the baby comes out, especially now that you can't see me, but um, there's a lot of baby me at this moment. So, the like the movement that I feel of my baby calls me back to my body several times a day and several times an hour. And one of the things that I learned early on to do, because sometimes the baby moves in a really weird way. Sometimes it's like, is this baby having a seat? Like, what's happening in here? This baby's like freaking out. Um, I learned to say to myself, every time I feel this baby move, it's an opportunity to take a deep breath and relax. Especially because I don't know what's going on in there really. Um, so in the great not knowing, to see if I can let that feeling of being with the unknown, touching the unknown, having the unknown touch me, be a reminder to breathe and relax, has been a great teacher too. Thanks for the question. Um, the reason why this second part of the chant makes me think of beauty, um, is not strictly in the aesthetic sense of like a pleasing image, or a, but it's the awareness of a certain kind of like order to things, and um, kind of symmetry is the right word, but the feeling of being in a universe that is lawful, that is governed by cause and effect, and in which certain reliable patterns unfold and can be observed. And and there's something about being in uncertainty, um, whether it's the political uncertainty, or the uncertainty that I experience in this moment of like, oh, how's this human going to come out? Like, um, I think there's a way in which, sometimes the teachings that I've had the privilege to study over the years just make themselves known. And one of my teachers offered this tip that when things seem murky or swirly, to just drop in what's sometimes called a resolve. Uh, we'll do this in concentration practice sometimes when we want to incline the mind in a particular direction. And this is not something that has to happen in the middle of meditation practice, although it can. But it's a resolve that we can also just offer to ourselves and to the universe in the middle of daily life. And the statement is, may I see this moment as Dharma. And then to watch that kind of unfold. And what I've noticed is that there are times where I think this doesn't make any sense. That's my thought. It doesn't make any sense. What's going on here? And then suddenly, I'll say, may I see this moment as Dharma? And it's like a great, hologram kind of lifts up, and it's like, you are here, first noble truth. This is suffering. Um, or whatever it is, and the sense of encapsulation of experience within this framework that actually makes it sacred, that elevates it from this experience of I don't know what's going on or I don't like, into, oh, this too is the Dharma unfolding. um, Strikes me as beautiful. And so one question I'll offer for your reflection is just to, when you look at your life as Dharma, what teachings, to notice what teachings you see presenting themselves now. I guess if I were to think about, Ruth's earlier question about like what's happening, in this pregnancy experience for me, what teachings are arising. I think there's what comes to mind is faith, the sada, as the first of the five spiritual faculties, and in this lineage. I know there's a lot of fear kind of um, in a in the collective experience right now, and I have that in my individual experience too. And there's something about being able to touch into a bit of faith around my, um, experience uh, that is helpful in kind of providing a counterbalance to that fear. Like what is the force of faith that I can generate that might make this fear seem um, more manageable or not so huge. And then I also think gratitude is become big because it can be easy to forget what a blessing it is to be, you know, this pregnancy did not come easy to me. And um, it can be tempting to just want to complain about like having, um, you know, physical discomfort and, just all the other stuff that comes with the blessing. It's like that I don't want as much, you know. Um, and to through that, remember the miracle. And then the last bit of the chant that I find, so beautiful is this piece about Sangha. And these wise friends, community of practitioners. I spoke a little bit about it, even the Buddha principle, but this um, truth that we can't do it alone, and thank goodness we don't have to. And I think this. I was thinking about this today as I was taking a walk. That it seems like um, the kinds of structures that used to hold Sangha are changing and shifting and moving, and sometimes dissolving and sometimes reappearing in other forms um, in this particular moment in time. Um, and so it's been helpful for me to remember that a Sangha is not an organization, it's not a building. Um, and that it's something that we can connect to directly through our awareness, that we can expand Sangha even to include, certainly the people that we're in relationship with, but also the beyond human world, the natural world. And there's this way that connecting with and feeling ourselves to be a part of um, a community generates a great deal of power. I once had the opportunity. I worked on a book recently, and I had the opportunity to interview someone that didn't make it into the book. But her name is Esperanza Martel. Some of you may know her. She lives in New York. She's a human rights activist. She's the educator. Uh, Teaches in the social work school at Hunter College. She's a community organizer. She is a radical. I mean, she was a part of, some pretty intensely dedicated socialist movement work back in the 70s in New York. And at some point she left that movement work and um, started building communities that eventually became a center. Although it's more than a center, it's called Casa Atabex Ache, and it's in the Bronx. And basically, what she told me is that she was seeing um, uh, women of color, Black women, Indigenous women, um, struggling with anxiety, depression, addiction was becoming big. And she was looking at what was available in terms of healing addictions. And she thought, we need something different. We need healing spaces that are built around like being in community with one another. It actually the fragmenting and isolating impact of hypercapitalism was part of, and then the trauma of um, uh, racial capitalism was part of what was underlying this epidemic of addiction and despair. And her feeling was that being in community, being in ritual, and bringing in ancestral practices could heal that. And so this center has been around for decades, and she's trained, hundreds of um, young women and femmes to facilitate these processes with other people in other places. They still do training sometimes. I hope to take one day. But when I was interviewing her for my book about I was interviewing her for my book about friendship because she's such a um, exemplary mentor. I mean, she has befriended young women. I mean, telling you hundreds. I think she became a, college professor, so she could even do more in that way. Hundreds of women under her wings. And I asked her, how do you think we get to collective liberation? And I was like, I have, in the tradition we have this roadmap for how we get free, this individual body, mind, heart. How do you think we get to collective liberation? And she said, you know, she paused for a while and she said, Kate, I don't know. She said, I can't see that far ahead. But what I can see, she said, is places where we practice freedom, even in the middle of unfree spaces. So they're like these hubs of liberation. Oasis, she said, used the word, or said, you can think about the quilombos in Brazil, where enslaved Africans, went to the jungle and were able to create a sense of protection around the space where they stayed free. They were not able to be re-enslaved. And she said, I see these spaces forming and then starting to grow and grow and grow until they start to meet each other at the edges. And she said, I think maybe that's how it happens. And so a question I just love to leave you with as you reflect on this talk is a question about where you are seeing the beginnings of beloved liberated community that you would like to help grow, that you would like to help be a part of, however small or large they may be, however new or old. So I really appreciate this time. It had some surprises for me, and it's such a blessing to be with, really two of my beloved teachers, Arowana Hayashi and Ruth King. What a treat. Um, so I think we're coming up on our time together. I'm happy to stay if you want to talk or add anything. Um, and if you do, please just go ahead and take yourself off mute. And if you don't, maybe we'll just pause together for a moment.
Thank you so much, Kate. This was beautiful. I have a bunch of questions, but I'll just ask one.
Okay.
Just would be curious to hear you talk about what led you to Radical Friendship as your book.
Oh man. Um, well, I gave a talk at a conference like many years ago at this point, and a publisher, it was a Buddhist Geeks conference. It became a podcast, and then a publisher asked if I would like to um, turn it into a book. And her idea was to transcribe the talk into one of those kind of small books, like if you've seen like the small kind of gift size books, like "We Should All Be Feminists" or something like that, of a speech. And I said, that would be okay, but I'd really love a chance to explore this notion in depth. And the talk originally was about, it was kind of a call to action. It was right after um, uh, the tragedy of the teenager Michael Brown being shot and killed in Ferguson, Missouri. And I was giving a talk to this mostly white, mostly male, kind of techie Buddhist audience. And so it was kind of a call to action, like, hey, we can use this practice to actually wake up to the biases that are in our hearts and to the inequities that are in our communities. And we have to actually do that. Like, it's our job. Um, and I felt like there wasn't, I didn't have a lot much, that was kind of it as far as the call to action went. There was not a lot more they had to say about that. And I knew that there were some people who were doing this beautiful work around race and the Dharma. Some of it was more research based, some of it was based in, like, for example, Ruth's long term experience working with all kinds of organizations and corporations and just training people on how to, be together. um, and in a um, like deeply spiritual and integrated way. And so I thought, well, what's going to be my way in? And friendship has always been really important to me, and it's always really baffled me. And I don't always know that I'm very good at it. Certainly when I was writing this book, sometimes I thought, man, do I have any friends? Like, what, like that. Writing a book on a topic will make you think like you don't know anything about it. Um, but I've always loved the Buddha's teachings on Kalyanamitta and spiritual friendship. And I thought that it was such a more, um, that phrase, spiritual friendship, meant so much more to me than the word ally. You know, I thought, like, I don't necessarily need more allies, but I would love to have more spiritual friends. And I'd love to be a better spiritual friend. And so it was kind of a long-term excuse to be able to really dive into those teachings and figure it out a little more for myself and hopefully share something that's valuable for others as well.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Kate?
I just wanted um, to express appreciation so much. I really appreciated the guided meditation and also the invitation to reflect on the three jewels, which is always the sort of ground of life, I suppose. But just to reflect in a fresh way and to be invited into your um, kind of unique and beautiful way of experiencing the three jewels and sharing that with us. So I really appreciate so much, Kate. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
All right. I will close us out. Again, thank you so much, Kate, for this So, so grateful for it. Um, hmm. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, both live and anyone who's watching the recording. Um, please join us in 2021, where we will introduce some new teachers and, of course, offer a lot of new talks. So we're really excited about what we have coming up next. I would ask you to consider becoming a subscriber to Weekly Dharma Gathering if you're not already. Right now, we have a 7-day free trial that you can find on our website. Please be sure to spread the word about our space to your friends. If you're on social media, you can follow us on Instagram at Weekly Dharma, and we're on Facebook at Weekly Dharma Gathering. Thank you so much. So much appreciation.
Thank you, Sheena. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Kate. This was so precious. Thanks to all of you.
Soon.
Bye-bye.